I found my son and my granddaughter living under a bridge. I was struck dumb as I remembered my ex-daughter-in-law saying they had moved to Australia and would never come back after the fight 3 years ago. I brought them home, but when my son revealed the secret about his wife, I'm glad you're here. If you're watching this, hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're listening to my revenge story from. I want to know how far it's traveled. I arrived in Charleston on a soft, golden afternoon. The room I rented was small, but it had a tiny balcony that looked over a street full of people drifting to and fro. I dragged my suitcase into a corner and stood there a moment, staring out. Street singers floated from far off, mixed with laughter and snatches of chatter from tourists. I told myself this trip was to heal, to forget the heavy days back in Savannah, where my house kept only silence and painful memories. I grabbed my bag and walked out of the hotel, heading to a small square with a murmuring fountain and cool stone benches. I sat and watched a mime perform in front of the crowd. I scanned faces, searching for a little joy among strangers, but my eyes snagged, unwillingly, on a corner behind the fountain. There, a small girl was curled up, clutching a worn, one-eyed rag doll. She was thin, her feet bare and dusty, her hair matted and stuck by sweat. She didn't ask for money like other children. She just sat in silence, wide, sad eyes following the passing world. I don't know why, but the sight pinched my heart. Something in the way she hugged that doll felt painfully familiar. A couple passed by, and the woman dropped a piece of cookie without meaning to. The girl stared at the crumb, eyes bright yet fearful. She hesitated a long time, as if afraid to be seen. Then she crawled slowly, picked up the cookie, shook it off carefully, and slid it into the torn pocket of her coat. The gesture was a needle in my chest. I couldn't take it. I tossed my melting ice cream in the nearest bin, stood, and hurried to a bakery a few steps away. I bought 2 fresh croissants, still warm and fragrant, and a little chocolate milk. I returned to the square and approached the girl. I crouched and softened my voice. "Here, little one." She started and looked up at me. Her eyes were large, dark, and full of distrust, like a frightened animal. I smiled and nudged the bag of rolls toward her, but when her gaze met mine, time stalled. On her right eyelid was a tiny birthmark you'd miss if you didn't look hard. That mark matched Marcus, my son. The air snagged in my throat, like a fist squeezing my chest. My granddaughter was in Australia, living comfortably with her parents. That's what I told myself. But my hands trembled as I offered the bag again. The girl hesitated, then reached out a thin little hand. Her small, cold fingers brushed mine. Then she whispered something that made my whole world crash. "Grandpa, is it really you?" Her voice was weak, trembling, but clear enough that I couldn't pretend I'd misheard. I snatched my hand back like I'd been burned. My heart thudded. My head spun. I stood at once. I stepped back and forced a clumsy smile. "You're mistaken, little one. My granddaughter is in Australia with her parents." I didn't dare look longer into those sad, hopeful eyes. They begged me not to leave. I turned and walked fast, trying to escape the strange weight pressing my chest. I told myself she couldn't be my granddaughter. How could she be? But the girl's thin voice still chased me down. "Grandpa, don't go, Grandpa." I heard small, hurried footsteps, the slap of her sandals on stone. I stopped in a narrow alley, my heart in a knot. The skinny, wide-eyed child clung to the hem of my jacket, like I'd vanish if she let go. The tourist map crumpled in my hand suddenly meant nothing. The colorful streets, the saxophone's lazy melody, everything blurred before that pleading gaze. Tears slid down her dirty cheeks, but she didn't wail. She just sobbed softly, voice shaking. "Don't you recognize me, Grandpa?" "It's me." Pain stabbed my chest, like someone squeezing my heart. I sighed and sat on the step of a long-closed shop. The stone's cold bite didn't matter. I looked at the girl, keeping my voice soft. "All right, little one. Tell me why you're here alone. Where are your parents?" She shook her head, her tiny hand gripping mine. Terrified I'd rise and go. New tears welled and slipped down, but she tried to hold them back as she said, barely above a whisper, "If you don't believe me, I'll take you to see my dad. When you see him, you'll believe me." I hesitated. Part of me wanted to flee, return to the hotel, shut the door, and pretend this never happened. But that look, hope braided with fear, held me fast. I nodded and let her lead me. Her hand was ice cold, so thin I felt each little bone. She led me away from the tourist streets, full of laughter and lights. We turned onto a narrow dirt path hidden by a lazy, brown ribbon of river that wound along the city. A damp, trashy smell wrinkled my nose. The girl didn't notice. She walked faster, as if afraid I'd change my mind. The path pulled us into a dim crawl space, where sunlight died beneath an old concrete bridge. The air turned heavy, wet and cold. I saw cardboard laid out on the gritty ground, a threadbare blanket, empty plastic bottles, a tiny stove long dead. No place to live, least of all for a child. My heart shrank, but before I could speak, the girl let my hand go and ran ahead. "Daddy, look who I brought." Her voice rang clear, threaded with nerves. A man, back turned, rummaged through a pile of scrap. He wore a torn jacket, thin hands picking through cans and bottles to drop into a sagging sack. He grunted hoarsely without turning. "Nia, I told you not to bother folks." He straightened slowly, wiped his hands on worn jeans, and finally turned. Time stopped. Though his hair was wild and a ragged beard swallowed half his face, though he was so thin he looked like skin stitched over bone, I knew him at once. It was Marcus, my only son. The bag in my hand thudded to the ground. I froze, speechless. My mouth dried out. The world tilted. This couldn't be my Marcus, my strong, laughing boy who used to roar with joy in my kitchen when I made his favorite gumbo. But those tired, bloodshot eyes were still my boy's. Marcus saw me, and I watched his face drain and flood with color. First shock, like he didn't believe I was real. Then fear. Then a deep, searing shame. He shoved Nia behind him, protective on instinct. He lowered his head and muttered, almost a whisper, "Sorry, we don't have anything to give you. Please go." I knew at once he was pretending not to recognize me. He didn't want me to see him like this, ragged, dirty, living under a bridge like a lost soul. I couldn't let him push me away again. I stepped forward, not caring about the damp grit underfoot. My legs trembled, but I couldn't stop. I raised my hand, wanting to touch his face, to be sure this wasn't a dream. But my hand hung there, too afraid to land. My voice cracked with hurt. "Marcus, what would happen to you, son?" I couldn't hold the tears. For 3 years, I'd lived with the ache of losing him. And now he stood before me broken. I didn't understand. I couldn't grasp how life had gone so wrong. At his name, Marcus crumpled. The wall he'd tried to build fell to dust. He lifted his head, eyes red and shining. He sank to his knees. He took his head in his hands and choked out, "Dad, I'm sorry. It's all my fault." His quiet, strangled sobs echoed under the hush of concrete. Nia, frightened, looked at him, then at me. She ran to him, wrapped her arms around his shoulders, and said with a shaking voice, "Daddy, don't cry. Please don't cry. Grandpa is here. He'll help us. Right, Grandpa?" Minutes later, I was perched on a cold stone, watching Marcus use the ragged sleeve of his shirt to clean the dirt from Nia's face. His hands trembled but were careful, afraid to hurt her. The sight split me open. My Marcus, the tall, bright man, always grinning like sunlight, was a shadow now, thin, exhausted, dust-streaked, clothes torn and filthy, hair matted, beard thick enough to hide him from himself. Only his eyes remained the same, tired, but still holding the gentleness of the son I'd raised 30 years. Nia tucked into his side, clutching her broken doll, eyes wide, pleading with me for help. I wanted to pull them both into my arms, to shield them from the wet, bitter cold. But the memory of that cursed day 3 years ago crashed back, clear, sharp, unstoppable. It had been a Saturday afternoon. Clear sky, soft sun. I was in my small kitchen in Savannah, stirring a pot of gumbo that simmered thick and fragrant, the dish Marcus loved since boyhood. I smiled to myself, thinking of dinner, when the family would sit together again, laughing like in the old days. Nia, only 3 then, would beam at her little bowl bright with scallions. I had a plate of lemon wedges ready, hot sauce on the table, cornbread cooling on the rack, just the way Marcus liked it. The front door slammed so hard the spoon jumped in my hand. Heavy, hurried steps. Marcus appeared in the kitchen doorway, and behind him came Tasha, my daughter-in-law. Her eyes were red, like she'd been crying, but I recognized the way she clung to Marcus, a performance sharpened by practice. Marcus tossed his car keys onto the dining table with a clatter that snapped a nerve in me. His face was tight, eyes lit with a fury I'd never seen in my son. "Dad, come on. We need to talk," he said, voice cold enough to frost a room. I wiped my hands on a towel and stepped into the living room, heart thudding. "What is it, son? Why are you so worked up?" He didn't answer right away. He stood with fists clenched, then suddenly pointed at me. "Stop pretending, Dad. YV, you've been talking trash about Tasha to Ms. Johnson. You said she's lazy, that she can't care for her own child, that she's burning through my money, didn't you?" His voice shook with rage, but what cut deepest was that look of disappointment, distance, like I was a stranger. I felt slapped. Who told you that?" I stammered, scraping my memory for anything I might have said to Ms. Johnson. Maybe I'd worried aloud about something. I'd fretted, but I had never called Tasha lazy, never said she bled my son dry. Before I could steady myself, Tasha spoke, tears trembling on cue as she pressed against Marcus's arm. "I told you, baby. Don't make this a big deal. I just can't anymore. This morning your father wouldn't let me take Nia to the park. Said it was a waste of gas." She dabbed delicately at her eye, but I saw the calculation behind her lashes. I kept my voice even, though it trembled. "I only said weekend traffic was heavy, Tasha. I wasn't forbidding anything." "Enough, Dad." Marcus cut in sharply, as if I were lying straight to his face. "Tasha already told me everything. You said her people are poor, that you always criticize her, that you control my money, that giving my wife money is for fools." Each word was a hammer. I didn't understand how things had twisted so far. I only wanted peace for my son, a happy home for Nia. But my words carried no weight. Marcus had chosen to believe Tasha's tears. I reached for his hand, wanting to say I'd never hurt him, but he drew back with an icy look, as if I were no father of his. "From today, stay out of my life," he said through his teeth, each syllable pounding my chest. "Even if I starve on the street, I won't come to you again." The sentence froze my heart. I stood rooted in that living room, while the perfume of gumbo went bland and meaningless in the kitchen. Marcus turned, took Tasha's hand, and headed upstairs. I heard the closet doors yanked open, the frantic thump of things thrown into a suitcase. I ran up and stood in the doorway, helpless witness to a scene I'd begged God never to see. Marcus and Tasha were packing like they couldn't bear another second in that house. Nia sat curled on the bed, clutching her little doll, sobbing from fear. "Daddy, where are we going?" "I don't want to go," she cried. Tasha kept feeding clothes into Marcus's hands, never once meeting my eyes. Marcus said nothing. He folded and jammed and zipped like a man under a spell. Minutes later they came down. The front door opened. Their silhouettes slid through and were gone. The slam rang like a verdict. I didn't even get to hug my granddaughter. Nia turned once. Her big eyes found me. But Tasha tugged her hand, and they vanished into night. The weeks after that, I moved like a ghost. The house, once full of warmth and noise, grew vast and airless. I called Marcus, no answer. I texted, no reply. I went to friends' places, to corners he used to haunt. No one knew anything. Each day I sank deeper into sorrow and blame. Where had I gone wrong? Which word, which look, had driven him away? Some nights I sat in the kitchen, staring at a pot of gumbo gone cold because habit had made my hands cook what my heart couldn't taste, hoping that if I set the table, they would walk in. One night my phone buzzed. A message from Tasha's number. My hands shook as I opened it. A chance to mend, I prayed. A line thrown back to shore. "Do not contact us again. We are processing the move to Australia. Marcus says he doesn't want a father like you. Forget us." I read it over and over. The words cut clean. I slid to the floor and let the tears pour. I truly believed I had lost my son for good. The damp smell of the river pulled me back to the echoing dark under the bridge. Nia clung to me, her small hand gripping my coat as if I might slip away like a bad dream. Marcus stood before me, shoulders shaking beneath a torn, too thin jacket. I looked into his eyes, once bright as morning, now just tired and full of regret. I couldn't bear it. I pulled a bottle of water and a warm croissant from my bag, meant for Nia. "Eat, son," I said, quiet but firm. "Nia needs you strong." He took the bread with a shaking hand, calloused fingers dusted with grit. He broke off a small piece and chewed like even eating weighed him down. "Grandpa," Nia whispered, worried. "Daddy doesn't like bread. He always says he'll save it for me." Her innocent truth stabbed me. I squeezed her hand. "I know, baby, but Daddy's got to eat now, so he can carry you home with me." I looked Marcus in the eyes. My voice shook with both hurt and relief. "Tasha told me you were moving to Australia. She said you wanted nothing to do with me. Why, son? How did you end up like this?" Marcus needed to tell me. He needed to drag the truth into light, or it would keep burning him alive. He lowered his head, clutching that scrap of bread like courage. He swallowed, and when he spoke, his hoarse voice flayed me with every word. "You were right to ask, Dad," he began, gaze fixed on the dirt. "The plan was Australia. Tasha said she had a contact there. Old friend in construction, good work, new start." I believed her. Thought Nia would get a better future. She pushed the paperwork, said we had to move fast. She told me to sign a stack of forms, said it let her represent the family at the consulate, show proof of funds. He let out a brittle laugh. I didn't read, Dad. I trusted her. Rage surged through me, not at Marcus, but at myself for ever ignoring the signs. How Tasha was sweet to my face but icy when I looked away. How she always tried to wedge herself between us. I called it marriage friction. I had been a fool. "What happened next, son? What did she do?" I asked, steady as I could. His voice sank lower, each word a confession. I emptied my savings. Sold the pickup, the one we bought after years of hustling. Gave her everything. She said she needed it for documents, flights, landing costs in Australia. I never doubted. Thought it was for us. He paused, breathing hard, as if pushing down a spasm of pain. A week before the flight, a court notice arrived. Tasha had filed for divorce. The petition said I abused her, abused Nia. I went cold. Abuse? You. The room of the world tilted. My gentle boy accused of that? Fury shook my voice. How dare she? Marcus shook his head, eyes bloodshot. I had no money for a lawyer. Everything was in her name because of that authorization. I had nothing. The judge ruled for her. I still believed, stupidly, that it was some step needed for the visa. She said as much. I thought she had a reason that she'd explain later. He covered his head with his hands, shutting out the memory. Nia shifted in my lap, murmuring in her dreams, as if feeling the tremors in her father. Daddy never hit Mommy, Nia mumbled, half awake. Daddy never. I held her closer. I know he didn't, baby, I said, voice firm as a vow. I met Marcus's eyes. Go on, son. Tell me all of it. He drew in a ragged breath. The day of the flight, she was still smiling. Walked us into the airport, told us to sit while she checked us in and dropped the bags. She had all the cash. All 3 passports. The tickets. I sat, holding Nia, and we waited. An hour. 2. Final call sounded. I called her. Phone already off. I ran to the counter, near out of my mind. They said her name was on the passenger list. The plane had already taken off. The image lanced me, Marcus and Nia waiting on metal seats while Tasha flew off with every scrap of their life. She left you both, I said, though I knew. He nodded. Next day, while we were still at the terminal with nowhere to go, she called from a blocked number. He swallowed. She laughed. A cold laugh. Told me, see, you were a fool for trusting me and doubting your own father. This is the price of your stupidity. Don't ever look for me again. At that, my son finally broke. He bent into my shoulder and wept, a full-grown man sobbing like a child, sound swallowed by concrete and river. Nia woke and clung to him, crying too. Daddy, don't cry. Mommy wasn't good, but we got Grandpa now. I wrapped them both up, and the fire of anger at Tasha roared wild inside me. But stronger than the rage was grief, for the gentle man my son was, who had trusted the wrong person and paid with everything. I stood and drew them up with me. "Come," I said, voice shaking but sure. "Home with me. No more bridges. No more trash. No more hunger. I will not let you hurt one more day." Marcus hesitated, shame clouding his thin face. "Dad, I don't deserve it," he murmured. "I hurt you. I said terrible things. I can't." I cut him off by gripping his hand. "You're my son. Nothing in this world changes that. Come on, Marcus. Come home." I led them both toward the bus station in Charleston, holding Nia's small hand while Marcus walked behind us, head bowed to avoid the stares of strangers. The terminal buzzed with people, announcements blaring, suitcases rolling, but I barely noticed. I only wanted to get them back home, back to Savannah, the place they should have never left. I bought 3 tickets and chose the seats at the back so they could sit together, away from curious eyes. When the bus rumbled to life, Nia rested her head on my lap, her tiny fingers still gripping mine as she drifted into sleep. Feeling her cold, fragile hand squeezed around mine tore something inside me. I brushed her tangled curls back gently, trying not to cry. Marcus sat beside me, staring out the window. Streetlights streaked over his hollow face, marking every year of suffering he'd endured. After a long silence, he began to speak in a low, rasped voice. "The first days were the worst, Dad. I had nothing left. No documents. She took them all. My ID, the family papers, even Nia's birth certificate. I couldn't rent a room or get a real job." I listened, stroking Nia's hair, my heart twisting with every word. The image of my son, once proud, driving the candy truck from our family shop, now wandering the streets with a child and no identity, was unbearable. "What did you do to survive?" I asked quietly, even though part of me feared the answer. Marcus sighed. "I went to a construction site outside the city. Thought I could at least get day work. I'm strong," I said. "I'll carry, I'll dig." The foreman looked me up and down and said, "No papers, no job. Get out before I call security." I stood there, covered in dust, feeling invisible. No one needed me. His shoulders shook slightly. That night, Nia and I slept on a park bench. It was cold. She held her doll and shook. At midnight, it started to rain. I picked her up and ran under a store awning. She cried for her mother, and all I could do was hold her tighter. I bit my lip, tears slipping free. The image of my granddaughter trembling in the rain made my chest ache. "Why didn't you call me, Marcus?" I whispered. "One call, and I would have come for you." He turned toward me, his eyes wet, voice heavy with guilt. "I wanted to, Dad. I found a coin in the trash once, just enough for a payphone. I stood there for an hour, coin in hand, trembling. I knew if I called, you'd come. But then I heard my own words in my head. Even if I starve, I won't look for you." That stupid pride, that shame, it stopped me. I was scared you'd look at me and see a failure, someone who didn't deserve to be your son. I took his rough, scarred hand, the same hand that used to stir the gumbo with me when he was a kid, back when his fingers were small and clean. "You could never be that," I said softly. "You're my boy, always." He lowered his head, tears spilling freely. "I don't deserve you, Dad. Nia was sick once, burning up with fever. She called for her mom, delirious. I had no money for medicine, no help. I soaked a rag in river water and laid it on her forehead, praying she'd pull through. I thought I'd lose her." Nia stirred in her sleep, whimpering faintly. I hugged her tighter and whispered, "You did everything you could, son. You didn't give up on her. That's what matters." He nodded, wiping his face. "A homeless man found us one night. He told us about a spot under the bridge, said at least we'd stay dry. Every morning, I left Nia with an old woman who sold lottery tickets. She was kind, but she had nothing herself. She'd give Nia a piece of bread, a sip of water. Then I'd walk the alleys collecting cans and bottles. On good days, I'd make enough for milk and fresh bread. On bad days, we'd share a crust from the day before." He let out a weak chuckle, but Nia never complained. She'd hug that rag doll and tell me, "Daddy, tomorrow will be better, right?" And I'd nod. Every night I'd nod, even when I didn't believe it. I couldn't hold back anymore. Silent tears streamed down my cheeks. I looked at Nia's sleeping face, still marked with dirt, but peaceful, and felt both sorrow and pride. "She's strong, Marcus," I said. "You both are. And now that I've found you, everything's going to change." The bus rolled into Savannah at dawn. Pale light spilled over the familiar streets I'd walked all my life. We moved through quiet blocks where the smell of fresh bread drifted from bakeries just opening their doors. Marcus walked slowly behind me, uncertain, as if the city itself might reject him. When we reached the iron gate of my old house, he stopped and stared. "Dad," he whispered, "I don't know if I can go in. I hurt you. I don't belong here anymore." I unlocked the gate, pushed it open, and took his hand. "This is your home, son. Always was. Always will be." The warm scent of sugar and butter from the small candy workshop behind the house drifted out like a welcome. Nia looked around wide-eyed, her face glowing in the morning light. She pointed to the faded couch in the living room. "Daddy, can we sleep here tonight?" she asked timidly. I lifted her into my arms and hugged her tight, feeling her small heartbeat against my chest. Tears blur my sight. "Not just tonight, sweetheart," I whispered. "From now on, this is your home. No one will ever take you away again." Marcus stood at the threshold, eyes red but full of wonder. The first thing I did was run a hot bath. The bathroom steamed up, and I helped Nia take off her worn, dirty clothes. When I saw her thin body and the faint bruises on her legs, I felt my heart twist. I washed her carefully, afraid even the water might hurt her. She sat still, eyes wide, smiling softly when the bubbles touched her hair. "Grandpa," she said, her voice clear but shy, "the warm water feels so good." I smiled, hiding my tears. "You'll have a warm bath every day from now on, Nia." From my old closet, I took a pink dress I'd bought 2 years ago, back when I still dreamed she might come back one day. I'd almost thrown it out once, thinking she'd never wear it. But when I slipped it over her shoulders now, and she twirled, radiant as a flower, I felt my chest fill with warmth again. Marcus bathed next. He shaved off the thick beard, washed his tangled hair. When he came out, wearing one of my old shirts, too big, but clean, I hardly recognized him. Still thin, but his eyes were lighter, less haunted. "Do I look okay, Dad?" he asked, voice uncertain. I walked over, put my hand on his shoulder, and smiled. "You still look like my handsome boy." He ducked his head, smiling shyly. That night, for the first time in 3 years, we shared a real meal together. I cooked gumbo again, just like before. The rich smell of sausage, shrimp, and spices filled the house, bringing back echoes of laughter long gone. Nia's eyes sparkled when she tasted her first spoonful. "Grandpa, this is the best thing I've ever eaten," she said between bites. I laughed softly and brushed a crumb from her cheek. Marcus ate quietly, slow and thoughtful, as if each bite carried both nourishment and memory. I saw his shoulders tremble slightly, and I knew it wasn't just the taste, it was belonging. Our house wasn't just a home. It was also our family's candy shop, sweet legacy, passed down for 3 generations. The scent of caramel, coconut, and lemon peel had always been part of my life. Marcus began helping around the shop, sweeping the floors, carrying bags of sugar and flour. He worked without stopping, as if trying to redeem himself through labor. I let him, though my chest tightened every time I saw him sweat and tremble from exhaustion. "Take a break, son," I told him one afternoon. He only shook his head. "I owe you too much, Dad. I have to do this." Meanwhile, Nia adapted quickly. I enrolled her in a small school nearby. She was bright, eager, and within weeks caught up to her classmates. Every afternoon when I picked her up, she'd run into my arms, showing off her drawings. "Grandpa, my teacher said I made the best picture in class today," she'd exclaim, holding up a clumsy but colorful page. Her laughter filled the house again, chasing away the silence that had haunted it for years. One day, as I struggled with my old notebook calculating orders, Marcus came in and saw me rubbing my temples. "Let me help, Dad," he said. "I know a faster way." He sat at my old computer and got to work. Within days, he built a small website for the shop, took photos of our candies, Uploaded them with little stories about our family recipes. People buy online now, Dad, he explained. We gotta keep up. I watched him, pride swelling in my chest. My boy, despite everything, still had that spark, clever, kind, determined. Orders began to flow in. First a few from nearby towns, then dozens more. People loved the sweets, and the story behind them. A family reunited, love rebuilt through sugar and patience. Marcus even designed new packaging, a simple but beautiful box showing an old man and a little girl making candy together. Nia and me. He reached out to delivery services, expanded to other states, and soon the phone wouldn't stop ringing. The shop came alive again, just like the old days. Late one night, I walked into the workshop. Marcus was still there, packing boxes for morning delivery, sweat glistening on his forehead but his eyes bright with purpose. I poured him a mug of hot chocolate, sat beside him. "Take a rest, son," I said softly. He looked up, took the cup, inhaled the steam, and smiled faintly. "I don't know how to thank you, Dad. If it weren't for you, Nia and I." His voice cracked. I rested my hand on his shoulder. "You don't have to thank me. You being here is all I ever wanted." He smiled, a real one, the first in 3 years, and in that moment I knew the wounds were finally starting to heal. Little by little, life began to feel normal again. The shop, Sweet Legacy, was thriving. The scent of caramelized sugar and toasted coconut floated through the rooms like music from the past. Every morning, Marcus woke before dawn, fired up the stoves, and set to work rolling candy, cutting brittle, packing fudge squares. Nia would sit at the counter doing homework, humming little songs, while the sunlight filtered through the lace curtains. Weeks passed, and for the first time in years, peace settled over the house. I watched Marcus regain strength. His shoulders straightened, his eyes cleared. He joked with customers, taught Nia how to fold the candy wrappers just right, and sometimes even sang to the radio while he worked. I would stop mid-task just to listen, to soak up that sound, his voice. One afternoon, while I was mixing syrup in the back, Marcus came in, wiping his hands on a rag. "Dad," he said, "a Canadian company reached out. They want to discuss importing our coconut candies." His smile was wide, but there was a tremor of disbelief. "Can you imagine that? From the bridge to Canada?" I chuckled and put a hand on his shoulder. "You've worked for it, son. You earned every bit." Nia peeked through the doorway with a piece of candy stuck in her cheek, grinning. "Does that mean we're famous now, Grandpa?" I bent down and kissed the top of her head. "We don't need fame, baby girl. We've got each other. That's more than enough." For a while, it seemed like nothing could go wrong. Marcus smiled again. Nia laughed without fear, and I thank God every night for giving me my family back. But life has a way of testing peace. It was a bright afternoon, the store full of chatter and clinking jars, when the sound of a car pulling up outside made me look up. Tires crunched against the curb. I didn't pay attention at first. Customers came and went all day. But then I noticed Marcus freeze mid-step. The box in his hand slipped and hit the floor with a dull thud. "Marcus," I said quietly. He didn't answer. His face had gone pale. Outside, a taxi idled by the gate. The door opened, and a woman stepped out wearing a tight dress and oversized sunglasses that nearly swallowed her face. She paused, straightened her posture, and then smiled that same perfect, icy smile I remembered from photographs. It was Tasha. Every sound inside the shop stopped. The chatter, the laughter, even the rustle of paper. All that was left was the faint hum of the candy machines and the wild beat of my heart. Nia, who had been sitting by the door reading a comic book, looked up. The comic slipped from her fingers. Tasha removed her sunglasses slowly, revealing the face that had once brought my son to ruin. The years had barely touched her. Still beautiful, still dangerous. I saw Marcus's jaw tighten. Nia's small body stiffened. She didn't recognize her mother. "Daddy," she whispered. "Who's that lady?" Marcus didn't answer. He stepped forward instinctively, his body tense, protective. I moved closer too, my instincts matching his. Tasha's smile widened, dripping with feigned tenderness. "Nia, sweetheart," she said, her voice syrupy sweet but sharp underneath. "Come here, baby." Mommy's missed you so much. She crouched, arms open in a theatrical embrace, a single tear gleaming on her cheek like a prop. Nia shrank back, pressing herself against Marcus's leg. Her hand clutched the hem of his shirt. "Daddy," she whispered, trembling. I stepped between them before Tasha could move closer. My voice came out steady, but inside, fire roared. "You're not welcome here, Tasha. Leave." She straightened slowly, her face tightening at my tone. "I just came to make things right," she said, "to give my daughter a full family again." I laughed bitterly. "A full family? You left your child crying at an airport and ran off with every cent my son owned. Don't you dare speak of family." Customers nearby shifted uncomfortably. Some pretended to browse, others stared openly. Marcus clenched his fists, trembling with rage. "What do you want, Tasha?" he said finally, his voice low but cutting. "Haven't you done enough?" Her mask slipped then. The warmth drained from her expression. Her lips curved into something cold and sharp. She looked around at the crowded shop, at the jars and the sign over the counter, and said, "You're doing well, Marcus. I can see that. Maybe too well." Then she smiled, a predator's smile. "Half of this belongs to me. Don't forget we were married. And as for Nia," she glanced down at the frightened girl, "I want my daughter back." Marcus took a step toward her, fury blazing in his eyes. "You have no right to her." I grabbed his arm before he could lose control. Tasha wanted that, wanted him to lash out so she could play the victim again. I met her gaze and said evenly, "You'll get nothing, Tasha. Not money, not this business, and certainly not Nia. Leave now before I call the police." Her eyes glittered. "Go ahead," she sneered, "but expect a court notice soon. Nia is my child in this business. I have legal rights." She turned on her heel, slid her sunglasses back on, and walked out as calmly as she had arrived. The taxi door slammed, and in moments she was gone, leaving silence so heavy it pressed on the walls. Customers mumbled excuses and hurried out. Within minutes, the shop was empty. Marcus stood in the middle of the room, fists white, breathing hard. His body shook, not just from rage, but from fear. Nia clung to my side, eyes wide, voice trembling. "Grandpa, was that my mommy? Why did she say she's taking me?" I knelt and gathered her into my arms, hiding the storm inside me behind a gentle voice. "Don't you worry, sweetheart. You're daddy, and I won't let anyone take you. You're safe here." Outside, clouds had started to roll over the sun, casting long shadows through the shop windows. It felt like a sign, a warning. The next few days, tension hung over the house like a storm that wouldn't break. Marcus barely slept. Every knock on the door made him flinch. I tried to reassure him, but my own heart was uneasy. Then, one morning, as I checked online orders, a new notification popped up. A post from a local review page, warning to everyone. My child got sick after eating candies from Sweet Legacy. Be careful. Those people don't care about health or safety. The account name read New Mom 85. The photo showed a box of our coconut candies, poorly lit and half open, as if someone wanted it to look cheap. My blood ran cold. Within minutes, more comments appeared, new accounts I didn't recognize. I noticed a weird taste lately. Pretty sure they used cheap sugar. My cousin got sick too. It was a flood of lies. Marcus came to my side, frowning at the screen. "This isn't real. Dad, I swear everything's clean. We check every batch." "I know, son," I said firmly. "This is her. It has to be." He immediately logged into the shop's page and wrote a calm response. "All our ingredients are certified. We welcome any inspection." But his message was buried under dozens more hateful replies. Within 2 days, a video began circulating online. A woman crying in front of a hospital bed, a child with a drip in his arm beside her. "Just because I trusted a local candy brand," she sobbed. "My son is now poisoned. Please boycott Sweet Legacy." There, in clear view on the nightstand, sat one of our candy boxes. I felt the room spin. No, this can't be happening. There was no hospital name, no proof, only the video. But it spread like wildfire. A local news site ran a headline, "Sweet Legacy Scandal. Family candy shop accused of contaminating products. The phone wouldn't stop ringing. Canceled orders, angry messages, even threats. You're poisoning kids, one voice screamed before hanging up. Our partner stores stopped selling our candies. Even the Canadian company froze negotiations. Every call, every message was a dagger. Neighbors avoided my eyes. Ms. Johnson, who used to stop by for lemon peel every morning, now crossed the street when she saw me. One night, someone hurled rotten eggs at our door. The smell lingered for days. Inside, the shop that once burst with laughter was silent and cold. Shelves stood full of untouched candy, their bright colors dulled by dust. Nia came home from school one afternoon, eyes red. She ran into my arms, sobbing. "Grandpa, my classmates said your candies make people sick. Is it true?" I hugged her tight, forcing calm into my voice. "No, sweetheart. Our candies are made with love, never harm. Don't listen to lies." She nodded, but her tears soaked my shirt. That night, after I closed the shop, I found Marcus sitting alone at a work table, surrounded by unopened boxes. His head was in his hands, eyes hollow. "Marcus," I said softly, "come rest. It's late." He lifted his face, red from exhaustion and despair. "Dad, maybe we should shut down. I'll give her half like she wants. I can't watch you and Nia go through this because of me. It's my fault. I brought her back into our lives." I felt something ignite inside me. Not fear, but a burning refusal. I sat across from him, took his hands, and said firmly, "Listen to me, son. We've done nothing wrong. This shop is our family's sole mine, your grandfather's, yours, and Nia's. I won't let that woman destroy it or touch my granddaughter again. We'll fight, Marcus, until the very end." He looked at me, doubt flickering, but then a faint spark returned to his eyes. "Aren't you afraid, Dad?" I smiled sadly. "Of course I am, but I'm more afraid of losing you again." That night, I opened the old wooden chest your grandpa left behind. Inside lay an old address book, names of friends, allies, people who once helped us. My hand trembled as I flipped through until I found the name I was looking for. Mr. Raphael Carter, retired lawyer, old friend of the family. I dialed the number. "Hello," came a deep, steady voice. "Rafa, it's Elijah," I said, trying to keep my voice from cracking. "I need your help. My family's in trouble." He was silent a moment, then said, "I'll be there tomorrow morning. We'll get to the bottom of this." I hung up, breathing hard but lighter. For the first time since that day under the bridge, I felt hope stir again. Outside, thunder rolled over the city. The storm was coming, but so was our fight. The next morning, the storm had broken for real. Rain lashed the windows, turning the streets of Savannah into rivers of silver and shadow. I stood by the window, coffee cooling in my hand, watching the clouds crawl low and heavy. The storm outside felt like the one brewing inside me, loud, merciless, unending. A knock came at the door just after 9. I opened it to find a tall man in a raincoat, water dripping from his hat brim. His eyes, still sharp despite the years, lit up when he saw me. "Elijah," he said warmly, "you haven't changed much." I smiled faintly. "Rafa, you old devil, come in before you drown." He chuckled, shaking the rain from his coat as he stepped inside. 3 decades, and you still make the same joke," he said, settling into the kitchen chair like he'd never left. His presence brought a flicker of calm into the house, a reminder of steadier days. Marcus joined us soon after, looking wary but respectful. I introduced them, then poured coffee for all 3 of us. "So," Rafa began, pulling a leather notebook from his coat, "you said there's trouble with your ex-daughter-in-law. Start from the beginning. Every detail." Marcus hesitated, glancing at me. I nodded. He took a deep breath and told everything. How Tasha left, the fake accusations, the bridge, her return, the threats, the smear campaign. Rafa listened in silence, scribbling occasionally, his expression unreadable. When Marcus finished, the room felt thick with tension. Outside, thunder cracked like the sky itself was splitting. Rafa tapped his pen against the notebook thoughtfully. "She's cunning. She's using reputation as her weapon. Hard to fight lies once they start rolling. He turned to me. You said she mentioned legal rights? Yes, I said. Claimed she still owns half of the business. He leaned back, sighing. Technically, if she was part of the marriage and no settlement was finalized, she can try to argue that. But that doesn't mean she'll win, especially if she used fraudulent tactics. Marcus frowned. She said she'd go for custody too. Rafa's eyes narrowed. Custody cases are emotional battlegrounds. Judges see accusations. They react fast. We'll need proof of abandonment, witnesses, any records. The more evidence we gather, the better. He looked at Marcus with calm intensity. She wants to break you psychologically before she even steps into court. That's what all this slander is about. Marcus rubbed his face. It's working. I can't even go out without someone spitting words like poisoner at me. Rafa's voice turned firm. Then we hit back. Calmly. Smartly. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a tablet. I'll file a defamation notice to the state's cybercrime unit. These fake reviews and videos, if we can trace the IPs, we'll know where they came from. Do you think it'll lead back to her? I asked. Rafa smiled slightly. I'd bet my last dollar on it. Just then, Nia wandered into the kitchen, still in her pajamas, clutching her rag doll. She blinked at Rafa curiously. Who are you, mister? She asked. He smiled kindly. An old friend helping your grandpa. She nodded solemnly, then climbed into my lap. Mommy came back, she whispered softly, eyes wide. She said she wants me, but I don't want to go. Her words stabbed me. I hugged her gently. No one's taking you anywhere, Nia. You're safe. Rafa looked at her, his expression softening. She's the key, he said quietly to Marcus once she'd left the room. A child's testimony, especially one that's been abandoned, can change everything. That day we gathered every shred of evidence we could. Old bank transfers, messages Tasha had sent before disappearing, photos of Marcus and Nia at the airport, even witness statements from the woman who sold lottery tickets near the bridge. Rafa's mind worked like a machine, precise, relentless. By evening, we had a thick folder of documents and digital evidence. This will help us with court, Rafa said, patting it. But to save the business, we need something else, truth, told publicly. Marcus's head shot up. You mean go online? Make a video? Rafa nodded. Yes. People believe emotion more than evidence. You have to speak from your heart. Let them see your face, your story. Not an angry man, not a victim, just a father and a son trying to live honestly. Marcus hesitated, but then looked at me. I saw in his eyes the same fear I'd seen under the bridge, but also the same spark. All right, he said finally. I'll do it. We set up the camera in the workshop that night. The lights were soft, the background filled with jars of candies, the same ones people had come to distrust. Nia sat on my lap in the corner, silent but watchful. Marcus faced the camera, took a deep breath, and began. My name is Marcus Ellis. I'm the owner of Sweet Legacy, a small family candy shop here in Savannah. 3 years ago, I lost everything, my home, my money, my dignity. I lived under a bridge with my daughter, Nia. But my father found me, brought us home, and helped me rebuild our lives. He paused, eyes glistening. Now someone I once trusted is trying to destroy that again, with lies. She says our candies made children sick. That's not true. We've passed every inspection. We make everything with care, with love. He reached over, picked up a piece of candy, and broke it in half. This isn't poison. It's my daughter's favorite. It's what helped me find hope again. He looked straight into the lens. To whoever's spreading lies about us, you already took everything once. You won't take it again. When he finished, silence filled the workshop. I felt a lump rise in my throat. Rafa, watching through his glasses, nodded approvingly. That, he said softly, will turn hearts. We uploaded the video to every platform we could find, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. At first, there was nothing. Just a few likes, a few comments from loyal customers saying they believed us. But then, the next morning, something changed. I was in the kitchen making breakfast when Nia came running in, shouting, Grandpa, Daddy's famous. Marcus stumbled out of his room, rubbing his eyes. What? She pointed to the tablet on the counter. His video, had over 300,000 views overnight. Comments poured in from people all over. This man's story broke my heart. I remember buying from Sweet Legacy, best candy I ever had. I don't believe the lies. You can see the truth in his eyes. The tide was turning. Even local news picked it up. Man falsely accused fights back with viral video. A story of family and redemption. Rafa called, excitement in his voice. It's working, Elijah. The narrative's changing. The more people see you as human, the less her lies stick. But Tasha wasn't done. That afternoon, I received an email from her lawyer. Cold, formal, dripping with venom. Ms. Natasha Moore is filing for full custody of her daughter, Nia Moore, and claims defamation damages for the recent online harassment caused by the Ellis family's false accusations. Marcus went pale. He sank into a chair, gripping the edge of the table. She's really doing it, Dad. She's taking us to court. I clenched my fists. Then we'll face her there. A week later, the court date was set. The morning of the hearing, the three of us dressed in our best clothes. Marcus in a simple gray suit, Nia in her pink dress, clutching her doll like a talisman. The sky was clear, but the air felt heavy with fate. At the courthouse entrance, Tasha was already there, posing for reporters. She wore a white suit, immaculate and strategic, an angel's disguise. Cameras flashed as she dabbed at her eyes with a tissue, her lawyer murmuring rehearsed lines. Marcus froze when he saw her. I squeezed his shoulder. Steady, son. She feeds on fear. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with murmurs. The judge, a tall woman with calm gray eyes, called the case to order. Tasha's lawyer stood first, voice smooth as silk. Your Honor, my client merely seeks to restore stability for her daughter and justice for the harm done to her reputation. Mr. Ellis has publicly accused her of abandonment and fraud, claims entirely unsubstantiated. Marcus's jaw tightened. When it was our turn, Rafa rose, adjusting his glasses. His tone was steady, polite, but each word hit like a hammer. Your Honor, what my client has said is not accusation. It is truth. We have evidence, financial records, messages, witness testimonies that show Ms. Moore abandoned both her husband and their child, taking all their assets and disappearing for 3 years. The judge leaned forward slightly. You have proof. Rafa nodded, sliding a folder across the table. All verified. Then he turned to Marcus. Mr. Ellis, please tell the court where you were found. Marcus stood. His voice trembled, but he spoke clearly. Under a bridge, Your Honor. My daughter and I lived there for almost 2 years. My wife left with everything. She told me never to look for her again. Tasha's lawyer scoffed. A convenient story. No witnesses. Rafa smiled faintly. Actually, Your Honor, we have one. He gestured toward the door. The old woman who sold lottery tickets walked in, leaning on a cane. That's him, she said, pointing at Marcus. And that's the little girl. I watched over her every day while he worked for pennies. Her mother never came back. The courtroom went silent. Tasha's face froze, her confident mask cracking for the first time. The judge turned to her, voice cold. Ms. Moore, do you wish to respond to this testimony? Tasha's mouth opened, but no sound came. Rafa pressed the advantage. We also traced the source of the online smear campaign. All the fake accounts and the viral video. Every one of them was created from the same IP address registered to Ms. Moore's apartment in Atlanta. The judge's brows shot up. Is that verified? Yes, Your Honor. Confirmed by the cybercrime unit. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Tasha's lawyer tried to object, but the judge silenced him with a look. She turned to Tasha again, voice sharp. You manipulated evidence, defamed this family, and abandoned your child. You should be ashamed. Tasha paled. Then the judge's voice softened as she looked at Nia, who sat quietly beside me, clutching her doll. Young lady, she said gently, would you like to live with your mother or your father? Nia looked at Marcus, then at me. She stood, walked to the front, and said, voice trembling but clear, I want to stay with my daddy and grandpa. They love me. Mommy doesn't. There was a gasp in the courtroom. Marcus broke down silently, tears streaming. The judge smiled faintly. Then it settled. Custody will remain with Mr. Ellis. Ms. Moore's claims are dismissed. And regarding defamation, Mr. Ellis, you are free to pursue damages against her. The gavel struck once. It was over. For a long moment, none of us moved. Then Nia ran into Marcus's arms, crying, "We won, Daddy." I felt my knees go weak with relief. Rafa clasped my shoulder. "Told you, old friend," he murmured. "The truth always finds its voice." Tasha stormed out, cameras flashing in her wake. But this time, her tears were real and useless. As we stepped out of the courthouse into the sunlight, Marcus turned to me, his face full of gratitude. "Dad, I don't know how to thank you." I smiled, my heart full. "You already did, son. You came home." The wind was soft, the air clear again. For the first time in years, the world felt wide open. But deep down, I knew our story wasn't over yet. Tasha wasn't the kind to disappear quietly, and the shadows she left behind still had teeth. The weeks after the trial passed like the slow dawn after a long, black night. The news of our victory spread quickly, first through Savannah, then far beyond. "Sweet Legacy clears its name," read the local paper. The headline printed beside a photo of Marcus holding Nia in his arms outside the courthouse. That single picture, father, daughter, sunlight behind them, did what no lawyer or statement could. It told the truth. Our customers came back one by one. Some brought flowers, others brought apologies. The shop filled again with the scent of caramel and laughter. A few people even said the scandal made them trust us more, not less. They said, "Anyone who's been through fire and came out like this deserves support." But despite the peace returning to the shop, I noticed something in Marcus, a quiet restlessness, a shadow that lingered even as he smiled. He worked harder than ever, almost too hard, as if afraid that slowing down would bring back the ghosts. One night, after we closed, I found him outside sitting on the porch steps, staring into the distance where the streetlights melted into fog. "Can't sleep?" I asked. He shook his head, running a hand through his hair. "It's strange, Dad. We won. We should be happy. But I keep hearing her voice." "Tasha's." He nodded, jaw tightening. "Yeah, saying I'd never make it. That everything I touch will fall apart. Sometimes I think I still see her face in the crowd." I sat beside him, letting the night wrap around us. "Fear doesn't vanish just because the fight is over," I said. "It fades when you start living again. You rebuilt your life once. You can do it again, but without her shadow this time." He sighed, shoulders slumping. "You always make it sound simple." "It's not simple," I admitted, "but it's possible." He smiled faintly, and we sat in silence, listening to the soft hiss of rain starting on the street. The following morning brought new energy. Orders were rolling in faster than we could handle. The Canadian company reached out again, apologizing for freezing the deal. They wanted to sign a distribution contract after all. Marcus was ecstatic. "Dad, this could change everything," he said, his eyes bright again. "We could expand, hire help, maybe even open another branch." Nia clapped her hands. "Can we have a shop in Canada too? I want to see snow." I laughed, lifting her up. "Let's make sure we can handle one first, sweetheart." Rafa helped us finalize the deal, and within weeks, our candies were being shipped out in bulk. Sweet Legacy was no longer just a small-town shop. It was a brand of hope. We even received an invitation to appear on a local TV segment about family businesses that survived adversity. When the reporter came, Marcus told the story. Not about Tasha, not about revenge, but about forgiveness and resilience. "The sweetest thing in life," he said, smiling at the camera, "is getting a second chance." Watching him speak, I felt pride swell in my chest. My son was no longer the broken man I had found under that bridge. He had rebuilt himself piece by piece, stronger, humbler, and wiser. But peace, as I had learned too many times, never stays untested. It started small. A series of strange phone calls, silent ones, late at night. Sometimes a faint breath would linger on the other end, then hang up. At first, I dismissed them. Wrong numbers, I told myself. But they kept coming. Then one morning, Marcus came into the shop looking grim. "Dad," he said quietly, "someone's been following Nia." I froze. "What?" She told me. "A black car's been parked outside her school the last 3 days. Same spot, same time. Yesterday, she said a woman got out and tried to talk to her during recess, but the teacher saw and stopped it." My blood turned to ice. "A woman?" Marcus nodded, his voice trembling with barely contained rage. "She said the woman had long red hair." "Tasha." I clenched my fists so hard they ached. "She can't be serious. After everything." "She lost everything, Dad. Custody, money, reputation. Maybe she's desperate." We went to the police immediately. They took the report seriously, especially given the court history. A patrol car was assigned near Nia's school. For a while, the black car stopped appearing, but unease lingered like smoke. I found myself double-checking every lock, every sound at night. Marcus began escorting Nia to and from school personally. Life continued, but the tension never fully left. One Friday evening, we were preparing a large shipment for Canada. The shop was warm, full of the rich smell of toffee and cocoa. Nia sat on a stool by the counter, humming while she wrapped candies in gold foil. Marcus was packing boxes in the back room, and I was at the register finishing inventory. The bell above the door jingled softly. I looked up and froze. Tasha stood in the doorway, rain dripping from her hair, her clothes clinging to her as if she'd walked through a storm. Her eyes were wild, mascara smeared, but her smile was calm. Too calm. Marcus heard the bell and came rushing out. "Get out," he said immediately, his voice like steel. She raised her hand slowly. "I didn't come to fight." "Then why are you here?" I demanded, stepping between her and Nia instinctively. Her gaze flicked toward her daughter, and something unreadable crossed her face. Longing, regret, or maybe just calculation. "I just wanted to see her," she said softly. "Just once. Please." Nia stared, frozen in fear. "Daddy." "It's okay, sweetheart," Marcus said, though his hands were shaking. "Go upstairs. Now." Nia obeyed, clutching her doll as she ran up the stairs. We waited until her small footsteps disappeared. Then Marcus turned back to Tasha, fury burning in his eyes. "You've seen her. Now leave." Tasha looked around the shop, the jars, the soft light, the warmth, and laughed bitterly. "You really built something, didn't you? While I was drowning." "You chose your own destruction," I said coldly. "You left them." She turned her gaze to me. "You think I don't know that?" she snapped. "You think I don't remember every night I woke up hating myself? You both ruined me. Do you understand that? When the world saw that video, when your perfect little story went viral, they made me a monster." Marcus stepped closer, voice shaking. "You are a monster. You abandoned your child." Tasha flinched, then smirked. "Maybe. But I gave you life once. Everything you have, this shop, this fame, it's built on my suffering." Her tone turned desperate, pleading. "Marcus, I need money. Just a little. Please. I can't find work. Everyone recognizes me. They whisper. I'm begging you." Marcus's jaw clenched. "You expect me to help you after everything you've done?" Tasha's face twisted, half rage, half despair. "You think you're better than me? I made one mistake, and now I'm damned forever." She lunged forward suddenly, grabbing his arm. "I want my daughter back. I deserve." Marcus yanked free. "You deserve nothing." The room went still. The only sound was the storm beating against the windows. Tasha's expression hardened into something cold, final. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "You'll all regret it." Then she turned, stormed out into the rain, and vanished into the night. I ran to the window and watched her disappear down the street. A part of me wanted to chase her, to end it once and for all, but something deep inside whispered to let her go. Marcus stood trembling, fists at his sides. "She's never going to stop, Dad. Not until she destroys everything again." I walked over and put a hand on his shoulder. "Then we'll stay ready," I said softly. "We've faced worse." But that night, As the thunder roared and rain lashed against the old windows, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake listening for every sound, every whisper of wind. And just before dawn, I thought I heard a car engine outside, idling, then driving off slowly. A week passed. There was no sign of Tasha. The police said she hadn't violated any restraining orders, and there was little they could do without new evidence. Marcus tried to focus on work, but the unease hung in the air. Then, one morning, as we opened the shop, Marcus froze. His face went white. "What is it?" I asked. He pointed to the counter. A small paper bag sat there. No one knew how it had gotten in. Inside was a single piece of candy, wrapped in our gold foil. But it wasn't one of ours. The wrapping was uneven, the color slightly off. Marcus unwrapped it slowly. Inside was a note, written in Tasha's familiar, looping handwriting. "Sweetness can kill too." The candy inside wasn't chocolate. It was something darker, crystallized, sharp-edged, with a strange metallic sheen. My stomach turned cold. Marcus looked up at me, eyes wide. "Dad, what is this?" Before I could answer, a knock rattled the door. 2 police officers stood outside, their faces grave. "Mr. Ellis," one said, "we need you to come with us. It's about your ex-wife." Marcus's voice shook. "What happened?" The officer sighed. "She was found early this morning in a motel outside the city. I'm sorry she's dead." The air went silent. The storm was finally over, but its silence felt heavier than the thunder ever had. For a long moment, none of us spoke. The word dead hung in the air like smoke, thick and unreal. Marcus stood motionless, eyes wide, mouth slightly open. The police officer's voice sounded distant, as if coming from underwater. What do you mean she's dead?" he finally whispered. The younger officer shifted uncomfortably. "The motel manager found her early this morning. It looks like an overdose. Prescription medication mixed with alcohol." He hesitated. There was no sign of struggle, but there was a note. I felt my stomach drop. "A note?" "Yes, sir," the officer said, pulling a small envelope from his folder. Addressed to Marcus Ellis. It was beside her on the nightstand. Marcus stared at the envelope as if it might burn him. His hands trembled when he took it. "Can I?" The officer nodded. Marcus turned the paper over slowly, broke the seal, and unfolded the page inside. The handwriting was unmistakable, Tasha's elegant loops, a little shaky now, as if written through tears. He began to read aloud, his voice breaking with each line. "Marcus, I don't expect forgiveness. I know I destroyed you, and I can't live with what I've become. You were right. I left because I was scared. Scared of being poor, scared of failing, scared that love wouldn't be enough. But it was. You and Nia were enough. I just realized it too late. Every lie I told came back to eat me alive. The world hates me now, but no one hates me more than I do. I wanted to come back, to make it right, but all I bring is poison. Maybe the only way I can give you peace is by leaving for good. Tell Nia. Tell her mommy is sorry. Tell her I loved her, even when I didn't deserve to." Tasha, the paper slipped from Marcus's fingers, fluttering to the floor. The officers looked away respectfully, giving us space. I could barely breathe. For all her cruelty, her manipulation, her venom, Tasha had once been part of our family. I remembered her laughter in the kitchen, her perfume drifting through the hallway, the way she held baby Nia. Somewhere inside that broken woman had once been warmth. Marcus pressed his hands to his face. "She's really gone," he whispered. "God, Dad, she's gone." I stepped forward and wrapped my arms around him. He shook, silent sobs racking his chest. "It's over, son," I said softly. "All of it. She can't hurt you anymore." But I knew this wasn't relief, it was grief. The complicated kind that comes when love and hate are too tangled to separate. The funeral was small. No friends came. Only us and the pastor from St. Mary's who'd known Marcus since he was a boy. The sky was gray and still, the air heavy with unshed rain. Tasha's coffin was plain, simple pine. On top of it, Marcus placed a single white rose, her favorite. He told me quietly. Nia stood beside him in her little black dress, holding my hand tightly. "Is Mommy in heaven, Grandpa?" she asked softly. I hesitated, choosing my words with care. "I think, God looks at the good inside people, not just their mistakes. So maybe yes. Maybe she's finally at peace. Nia nodded, staring at the coffin. I hope she's not lonely. Marcus bent down, kissing her forehead. She's not, he said. She's free now. When the pastor finished the final prayer, Marcus turned to me, eyes rimmed red. Dad, can I have a few minutes alone? I nodded, taking Nia's hand and stepping back. From a distance, I watched my son kneel beside the grave. I couldn't hear his words, but I saw his lips move. His shoulders shook once, then slowly stilled. When he returned, his face was pale but calmer. I told her I forgive her, he said quietly. Not for her sake, for mine. I squeezed his shoulder. That's the right thing to do. In the weeks that followed, a strange calm settled over our lives. The fear, the tension, it all faded like smoke after rain. But the silence she left behind carried its own weight. Sometimes I'd find Marcus standing in the shop doorway, staring at the street, lost in thought. He worked, laughed with Nia, smiled for customers. But at night, I'd still hear him pacing his room. One evening, I went to check on him and found him sorting through old photographs. He looked up and smiled faintly. I'm putting them in order, he said, for Nia, so she'll know where she came from, all of it. He handed me a photo, one of the three of them, long before the storm. Tasha's arms wrapped around him, Nia a baby on her hip, sunlight pouring through the window behind them. They looked happy, real. Do you think it's wrong to keep this? He asked. I studied the picture for a long time. No, it's part of her story, part of yours. You can't erase pain, son, but you can let it teach you. He smiled faintly. Maybe that's what you wanted, for us to move on. Spring came early that year. Savannah bloomed in color again, the magnolias heavy with white petals, the river shining like melted glass. Sweet Legacy was busier than ever. The Canadian deal expanded into 3 more states. The TV program nominated Marcus for Local Hero of the Year. But success didn't change him. Every afternoon, after closing, he'd pick Nia up from school, and they'd walk to the park together. I'd watch them from the window sometimes, Marcus pushing her on the swing, her laughter echoing across the street like bells. One day, Nia ran into the shop holding a small notebook. Grandpa, look, Daddy helped me write a story. I opened it carefully. The first page read, The Girl Who Found Home Again. By Nia Ellis. The story was simple, clumsy, but full of heart. It told about a little girl who was lost in the dark until her grandpa and daddy found her, gave her warmth, and helped her dream again. I had to turn away so she wouldn't see the tears in my eyes. It's beautiful, sweetheart, I said softly. Marcus appeared behind her, smiling. She wrote most of it herself. She's got your spirit, I said. No, he replied, looking at me. She's got yours. Months passed. The pain became memory, and memory softened into something gentler. On the anniversary of the day I found them under that bridge, we closed the shop early. Marcus, Nia, and I drove to Charleston, the same city where it all began. The square by the fountain was still there, full of life and laughter. Nia ran ahead, skipping, her curls bouncing. Marcus and I sat on the same cold stone bench where I'd first seen her. He looked around, eyes distant. It feels like another life. It was another life, I said, and we survived it. Nia came running back, holding 3 small paper cranes she'd bought from a street vendor. We each get one, she said cheerfully. You make a wish and let it fly. She handed us each a crane. Marcus smiled. What should we wish for, Dad? I looked at the little paper bird in my hand, its fragile wings catching the afternoon light. I thought about everything we'd lost, everything we'd regained, the pain, the forgiveness, the love that refused to die. I don't need to wish, I said. I already have what I prayed for. Marcus smiled softly, and together we let the cranes go. They caught the breeze and drifted upward, dancing above the fountain until they were just specks against the sky. Nia clapped her hands, laughing. They're going to tell God our wishes. Then he'll know we're grateful, Marcus said. We walked back to the car as the sun dipped low, bathing the city in gold. The streets smelled of rain and flowers. When we reached home, Marcus stopped by the door, looking at the sign above our shop, Sweet Legacy. The letters glowed faintly in the evening light. He turned to me, his voice quiet. You know, Dad, it's more than just candy now. It's what we are. Our story. Our forgiveness. I nodded, feeling my throat tighten. That's what a legacy is, son. Sweetness that outlives the bitterness. Nia tugged our hands. Come on, Grandpa. Daddy. Dinner. We laughed and followed her inside. That night, after Nia was asleep, Marcus and I sat on the porch. The air was soft, full of crickets and the faint scent of sugar from the cooling batches inside. Marcus leaned back, looking at the stars. Do you think she's up there? Tasha. He nodded. I took a deep breath. Maybe. Watching over Nia, I hope. Maybe she finally found peace. He was silent for a while. Then he said quietly, I think I did too. I smiled, closing my eyes. Then we've all come home. The night hummed softly around us. The lights of the shop glowed through the window, golden and warm, like a heartbeat. And for the first time in years, I felt it. The quiet sweetness of an ending that had finally become a beginning.